I'm being joined right now live on Zoom with some of our dear foundation students from the yeshiva of Aish Torah in the Old City right across from the Western Wall. I again want to start off with the prayer that you are safe and you're keeping others safe, and that you're having a peaceful and productive time during these troubling times. Everyone who needs a refuah shlema, a healing, should have one, God willing, very, very soon, and we should hear of no more troubles. So I just want to do a quick recap, because this is part 4. This is the final part of this series. This is the beginning of what we like to call the basics illuminated. And in part 1, I introduced myself very briefly, and I explained that one of the obstacles to my personally taking the Torah seriously, when I was introduced to it at a later stage in life, when I was already a college graduate and I grew up unaffiliated, and this thing called the Torah was being introduced to me, one of the obstacles for me personally was the fact that as profound and as wise as the Torah is, when I was taught that the sages teach us, and we have a tradition that the Torah is the blueprint of reality, which means that before God created the finite physical universe and all of the spiritual realms that are also finite, and his creation, he used the Torah as the blueprint, which means that everything, just like in a building, right, in a structure, everything that you find in the building, you're going to find it in the blueprint originally, because that was the plan for it. So also everything that you find in this world, you'll also find in the Torah, which is why the claim is made that the Torah has such wonderful advice for relationships and discipline and self-actualization, and even health advice and policy and economy and law and torts and everything, because it was the original plan. That's why Torah knows so much about the natural world and cosmology, and it's such a rich document in so many on so many levels. That being said, one of the things that I found is that everything in the Torah, from my personal superficial first glance of the Torah, reading it, was that everyone and everything, every idea, everything in this world is categorized as either good or evil or bad, right? And that to me was a big struggle, because again, and this may resonate with anyone here, whether you grew up in a home filled with Torah values, or you're just starting to dabble in it right now and learning about it. And that is that I found it very hard to imagine myself ever living up to this amazing, very high rubric that the Torah sets out for that which is good, right? And then I found myself looking at not only myself, but those around me and the world in which I was brought up. And I started thinking to myself, what is this evil? Is this really what the Torah calls wicked, bad? I mean, everyone that I know, no one's perfect, but they have redeeming qualities, even if they're not considered so good. And even those people that are good, they have flaws. So why does the Torah paint everything as almost black and white, right? And yet the world is full of gray. And how is that supposed to be a mirror, an accurate mirror reflection from the Torah to the world and back and forth? So that was a big challenge for me personally, and it comes with emotional challenges. I had some of my foundation students here share some of their, visceral, more emotional challenges, and everyone's dealing with them, and they're all valid. There is no wrong challenge that comes up when you're beginning to really take the Torah seriously. They're all valid because they're all personal, and if they're an obstacle for us as Jews to take the Torah seriously, then they need to be dealt with. However, I couldn't really find the tools to deal with it so much until I came to actually yeshiva. And when I came to yeshiva, that's when I started learning the language inside, the Hebrew language, the original Lashon HaKodesh, the documents themselves, the holy tongue in which they're written. And I realized that using a translation is taking someone else's word for it. The Torah actually wants very much for you to get creative and to give your own take on what the Torah is saying. In addition, when you start learning the Hebrew, you start realizing that a lot of the translations you would have translated totally differently, right? So I started realizing that when it came to the words that are always translated as good and the words that are always translated as evil or bad or wicked. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. I have a little source sheet here that I prepared. I threw some of those sources together. Just go through it really quickly, just a quick review. So I said that the first time the word tov appears in the Torah, it's describing the light that God created. I said, what does that mean light was good? How can light be bad? What does it mean that light is good in the first place? And we're not even introduced to the concept of bad, so it's not even a comparative term as the words good and bad are in every other language. What's going on? does tov really mean good? The light was good. Next, there's a mitzvah to prepare the menorah for lighting in the temple, in the holy temple that once stood in Jerusalem twice over, 400 years approximately each time, and God willing will stand again soon in our days. And there, the Kohanim, the priests that worked in the temple, have a mitzvah to prepare the menorah. But the word in the Torah for preparing it is not to prepare or not to set up, but rather behetivo, to make it good, literally to gooden the menorah. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a perfectly good menorah. There's nothing wrong with it. So why would the Torah describe it as making it good? It's perfectly good. Maybe this tet vase root, and the whole language of Hebrew is based on roots, that they're all related, all words with the same root are the same essential meaning, just used in different contexts to mean slightly different things. Why is this root being translated as good over here? It can't mean good. It means to prepare. It means to set up. I don't know what this means. So that was my two questions on the word tov. Okay, then it gets to the really tricky part, which is Ra, right? And I introduced you to one of the 7 blessings that are said under the chuppah at the marriage of a Jewish bride and groom. So whoever the family members, the rabbi is blessing the new family to be with blessings, that their home should be wonderful. And one of the blessings is Sameach Tisamach Re'im Ahuvim, right? God should greatly make you rejoice. Ahuvim, the beloved ones, but what are they described as in the Torah? Re'im, which is literally the plural of this word here, Reish Ayin, which means Ra, which is evil, as it's translated everywhere else in the Torah, right? When God describes that Adam and Eve should not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it's the Eitz Das Tov V'Ra, Tov V'Ra, Ra being the flip side of Tov, finally, and that is evil. But here, you're describing the bride and the groom as the plural of Ra, the plural of evil. That's not cool, Rabbi, you know, grandma's sitting right there. Don't call the bride and groom Ra, right? This is on tape, Rabbi, you know? Okay, fine. And then we said famous words in the Torah that even other religions have used as their clarion call, right? V'ahavta l'reyecha kamocha, which is translated often as love your neighbor as yourself. We said there's no word neighbor in this. The word for neighbor is shochein. Another reason to start learning the Hebrew, you'll start to see that the superficial things you were introduced to are just non-existent, really. So it doesn't say the word love your neighbor as yourself, but it says the words love your fellow as yourself. That's funny. Fellow, it's l'reyecha. It's the same noun, reish ayin. Here it's a companion, here it's a fellow. I get it, they're similar, but again, the word reish ayin, which is the word and the root that means evil, I mean, what's going on? Here it's not translated as evil, nothing of the sort, right? Then we realize that Jewish New Year's is nothing like the New Year's that I was used to growing up, right? New Year's Eve, right? You watch the ball drop, right? You open up your presents. It's an amazing night in Russian tradition, right? In my household, it was a great celebration. And I'm reading about New Year's in the Torah. First of all, it's in the 7th month. Go figure that out, right? That's a whole class for another time, right? So it says here, the 7th month and the first day of the month, you shall observe a sacred occasion. Don't do any work, right? Take a day off, take 2 days off. And it will be a day of Trua. The Torah calls it Yom Trua, not Rosh Hashanah, Yom Trua, which is translated as, it will be a day of horn sounding, of tooting your horn. What in the world is going on here? Yom Trua, that's the same word. This straight line, vav here, is not part of the root. Rather, this is the same root. Take my word for it. Take anybody who takes Hebrew grammar seriously, they'll tell you it's the same root, and therefore it should be translated as a day of evil. And that don't make no sense, right? So then we said the answer to our conundrum here. What does reish ayin really mean? What does tet vase really mean? Do they really mean good? Do they really mean evil? Well, it's not so clear anymore when you see those words popping up in other occasions. And again, it's not like English where the word pupil could mean the black thing in the middle of my eye, or the pupil that's sitting next to you that's, I don't know, always raising his hand first, oh, come on, I wanted to get it this time, he's a good pupil. I'm not. I don't know what happened to me, right? But anyway, so here's a Gemara in Kedushin, 39b, right? The Gemara I said yesterday, here's just a quick recap of the story, okay? Here, eyes on me. Thanks. Okay, so here's the story. We have our sages, they're walking down the road and they see a father and a son come out of a hut. The father says to the son, go get me some eggs from that nest up there. Kid says, absolutely, Dad, for you, anything. Dad's like, yeah, I'll make us an omelet. It's going to be great. Kid climbs up into the tree, gets the eggs, and then falls to his sudden death. Boom. Terrible tragedy in front of his father's eyes. The kid's dead. They give him proper Jewish burial. They console the father. And then they ask one question. Why? God, why would you let this happen? What's the big deal, you're thinking? There's lots of tragedies in the Jewish people. I get it. The kid fell. It's not pleasant. I don't wish it upon anybody. But why would the Talmud, for half a page, go on and on and on about how could God let this happen? You don't see that happening anywhere else in the Talmud. It's a weird story. And the sages are saying, well, maybe it's because of this and maybe it's because of that. And we said, why are they getting so fired up? Because there's only 2 mitzvahs. There's only 2 commandments in the Torah where the Torah says if you do them, you'll get long life. And those are the mitzvah of honoring your mother and father, which part of that mitzvah described by our sages is when they're hungry, you get them something to eat, right? And they're thirsty, you get them something to drink. And the second one, again, a different class for a different time, is called shluach hakan, shooing away a mother bird before taking her eggs. If you want to take those eggs for yourself to eat, right? You want to take the little chicks from under her, don't do it when she's right there. Rather, send her away first, shoo her away, and then take the eggs, and then take the chicks. That is a mitzvah from the Torah, and it's hard to explain why in the world that could be a mitzvah. It also makes you question when people translate the word mitzvah as a good deed. Good deed, okay, I guess it's a good deed. I mean, there's other mitzvahs that it's hard to understand that translation, but that's another class for another time. What does a mitzvah really mean? Anyway, those 2 mitzvahs are the exact 2 mitzvahs that this kid was doing at that time simultaneously, and the Torah says you'll live a long life, and the kid fell to his death suddenly right afterwards. So the sages are besides themselves, understandably so, and they're saying, how could God let this happen? This kid should have lived a long life. Okay. This story is so intense, actually, that one of the infamous characters in the Talmud, one of our sages, who was Elisha ben Avuya, from this incident, from witnessing it, he actually became known from that day forth as Acher, the other one. Acher, the other, because he turned his achora, he turned his back on the Jewish people. He walked away from Torah, from mitzvahs. He took off his kippah or his turban or whatever he was wearing on that day, and he said, I'm done with Torah, I'm done with mitzvahs, I'm done with Judaism, I'm done with God. Why? Because if the Torah says that you do these 2 mitzvahs, you live a long life, and the kid died right afterwards, then it can't be true. And he walked away. One of the greatest sages, Elisha ben Avuya, he was the Rebbe of Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Meir is mentioned in almost every single page of the Talmud, of the 2,711 pages of the Talmud. The Rebbe Meir is mentioned almost all the time. And he's one of the biggest sages ever. And this was his rabbi. So this must have been a big deal, this event, right? I mean, just to give you some idea of the magnitude of this event, right? So finally, and I'll pull up that piece of Talmud, that piece of Gemara right here. Finally, our sages say, no, you got to get it. You got to get it right. See, what happened is that even though we're going back and forth about how this could have happened, and the Gemara asked, but didn't Rebbe Elazar say that anyone on the path to do a mitzvah is not susceptible to harm, either on their way or when they're coming back from it? So how could this kid have died, right? This is in the middle of the discussion. The Gemara answers, no. Actually, one of the sages before this says he went back to the scene of that accident. And he saw that in that case, it was a sulam, which is a ladder. The kid was climbing up a ladder in order to get to the nest. It was a sulam ra'ua. And that's the same word here. It's actually, this word ra'ua is in Aramaic. Aramaic is like a funny spin-off of Hebrew, but it's based on Hebrew. I like to call it like bizarro Hebrew. If you know what Superman is, bizarro Superman. It's kind of like bizarro Hebrew, right? So ra'ua, same noun. It was a sulam ra'ua, an evil ladder. And the sages are actually satisfied with this answer. And they say, yes, it was an evil ladder. And from here, from this Gemara, we learn the kid deserved it. And you don't rely on miracles. That's why he died. Because he was relying on a miracle. Because he was climbing up an evil ladder. And it's like, what is going on here? What does Reish Ayin Ra really mean? Does it mean evil? Could a ladder be evil, for goodness sakes? Okay, that's where we left off. So, just catch my breath here. A big question in Judaism, when you're really looking for the truth, is a spark of hope. And it's something to contemplate and not to rush to answer. But this story that I just gave over to you guys, that's mentioned in the Talmud and the Gemara and Kedushin, provides the answer. Because our sages say on this word, sulam ra'ua, what kind of a ladder was it? It was a broken ladder. The kid was climbing up a broken ladder. And our sages say that when you're climbing up a broken ladder, and you know it's a broken ladder, and you're climbing up this broken ladder, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm a mitzvah man. My dad asked me to get him some food. Kibud av v'eim, honoring my mother and father. Torah says I'll live a long life. I'm going to shoo off that mother bird before I get those eggs. Torah says I'll live a long life. Shluach hakan, another mitzvah. I'm a mitzvah man. So I'm going to do these two mitzvahs, and the Torah promises I'm going to live a long life. So he was testing God, and he was saying, protect me. Even though he knew the only way to get up onto that rooftop was by using the ladder that was leaning there, and he knew it was a broken ladder. Do you know how crazy that is to climb up onto a rooftop, a couple of stories, a little kid, and he knows that that ladder is about to just, right? Just picture like a cartoon, like the legs are splitting and all of a sudden they start stretching, trying to stay on the ladder. This kid's legs are not going to stretch. He's going to fall. He made it up, and then the ladder, as nature would have it, fell apart, and he fell to his death. And the sages say, you can't rely on miracles when you're doing a mitzvah. You can't test God like that. That's so arrogant. God doesn't want to do open miracles. God wants to remain hidden. There's a certain point in history, again, another class for another time, where God decided that I'm going to be hidden from now on. And that's the point in time when prophecy ended. Someone comes up to you and says they're a prophet, run, right? Get them to a hospital quickly. No more prophets nowadays, I promise you, right? From the beginning of the Second Temple period, no more prophets, right? No more open miracles as they were occurring in biblical times, right? Okay, so our sages are saying that on some level, right, there was something that was wrong here, and God was not going to do an open miracle for this kid. But what we need to take out of this story is it's finally the answer to our question. What does the root Reish Ayin actually mean? It means broken. It doesn't mean evil. It was not an evil ladder. And now what I want to do is I want to go back and I want to plug it in everywhere else where we had a question. So here we see it was a broken ladder. It was not an evil ladder. It was a broken ladder, and that's why he fell. So let's go here to these sources. Rosh Hashanah is not called Rosh Hashanah in the Torah. Jewish New Year is called Yom Teruah. It's translated here as the day of horn sounding, of the shofar blasts. Why? Because on Rosh Hashanah, there's a mitzvah to blow the shofar. And there's 3 different sounds that the shofar makes. There's a tekiah, which goes like this. Right? Then there's the shvarim, which sounds like this. And then there's the teruah, which is the 3rd sound. You guys know what it sounds like? Give it a go, give it a go. Who's gonna get it first? Exactly, very good, very good. Exactly. It is a broken sound. It's a broken tekiah. The tekiah is 9 beats long, but it's solid. The teruah is 9 separate blasts. It's a broken tekiah. So you see, it's the day of brokenness. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. It's a day of brokenness. It's interesting that the Torah, when describing Rosh Hashanah, doesn't call it the Rosh Hashanah, the head of the new year, the beginning of the year. It calls it by one of the blasts, and that is the teruah. And there's a lot of depth to that when it comes to Rosh Hashanah time. God willing, we'll have a class on that in person, for goodness sakes, guys. I miss you so much. Anyway, okay. So it makes sense that means broken. What about v'ahavta l're'echa kamocha? And you shall love your evil as yourself. We said it can't mean that. Rather, your brokenness as yourself. But come on, Rabbi, that's poetry. What do you mean love your brokenness as yourself? We know the mitzvah is love your fellow as yourself, because part of the mitzvah is don't wake them up when they don't want to be woken up, right? And don't bother people in general. Don't be annoying, right? Don't do to others as you wouldn't want done to you, right? So what does it mean here? So the Ramban asked this question, Nachmanides, right? Almost 2,000 years ago asks, how could the Torah possibly ask you to love your fellow as you love yourself? It's impossible. You'll never love anyone else as much as you love yourself. It's impossible. And the Torah does not ask us to do anything that's impossible. By the way, there's two amazing things that come out of this one sentence in his commentary. And that is that number one, you have to love yourself in order to love other people. It's in the Torah. The only way you love anyone else is if you love yourself first. Amazing. And the mitzvah is love them as if they're you. But the Ramban says you can't do that. And the Torah can't ask you to do something. It's impossible. That would be so cruel. God creates you and then says, do these 613 commandments. And you're like, I can't do one of them. And God's like, sucker. You know, that's not right. Like, that's a cruel God. That's not the Jewish God. And therefore, every mitzvah in the Torah, we have to be able to accomplish. So says the Ramban, an amazing thing, that really, we are all shattered pieces of one master spiritual entity, one soul. That when Adam was created, when humanity was created, and in the future, when the Jewish people were born, Pesach time, right? More specifically, when we're coming out of Egypt and we go through the sea, we're born as an entirely new entity. And every single individual Jew is all a shattered piece of one major whole. And so says the Ramban, the only way that I can possibly love you like I love myself is if I view you as a piece of myself, right? Just like if I'm driving through a blizzard, I wouldn't like roll down the window, you know, and put my arm out like, and it's like someone sees you in your car and they're like, MZ, you want to like put your hand in? It's like negative 45 degrees outside. You're like, nah, I'm good. Let it die. Who needs my left arm anyway? Like, that's a part of you. You would never do that. So too, when you drive down the street through a blizzard and you see someone who's homeless, you should do something about it because you should see that they're a part of me. How can I leave them out in the cold? I wouldn't leave my arm out in the cold during this crazy conditions, right? So I can't do that to them either. So the only way the Ramban says you can actually love another human being as the Torah says, like you love yourself, is by viewing them as a piece of you. So this mitzvah, love your brokenness as yourself, is a reminder to us of how to accomplish the mitzvah itself. Beautiful, amazing. And the same goes when the rabbi calls the bride and groom the plural of evil under the chuppah. That's not what he's saying, even though re'im is literally the plural of ra, and ra is translated as evil. No, it doesn't mean that. Don't get it twisted. It means that you are both two halves of one whole. And the perfect time to highlight that is when you're standing under the chuppah and you're about to become whole. This is happening at the climax of the whole ceremony when you're about to become man and wife, one entity. So it's the perfect time to highlight, no, you're two broken parts of one whole. Re'im ahuvim, you're beloved and broken companions, but you're going to become one right now. It's amazing. It's great. So we see that the word ra actually means not evil, but broken. And it can be understood in that context, right? Whatever the word appears. Now, what I want to ask you is, what does the word broken mean in English? Just plain old Merriam-Webster dictionary, good old Miriam. What does Miriam say? Nice Jewish girl, Merriam-Webster, what would you find under broken?
Riley, aren't you like a philosophy dude? And like the deeper meanings of everything?
Yes, something like that. I guess you could say it means it's not capable of doing that which it was intended for. It's not capable of doing what it was set out to do.
Thank you, Jack. Perfect. Right on. Some people would say it's something that's not whole. But in fact, you can have something that's whole. That's very philosophical of you. You can have something that's whole that's still broken, right? Person's laptop, lo aleinu, person throws it into a pool of water. It's perfectly whole, right? But it ain't working. It's broken, right? So exactly, being broken means not accomplishing your intended purpose. And so from the flip side, we can understand what tov means. Let's just look at the sources again. If the Torah says the word ra and does not mean to intend evil, even though it's how it's translated a lot of times, what it means is something that's broken, then the word tov is the opposite, as the Torah teaches us that the tov and ra are two sides of one coin. Let's just do it this way. When the Kohen prepares the menorah for lighting, he's not making it good. It's a perfectly good menorah. It's the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Of course it's good. We said he's preparing it. He's setting it up. What he's really doing it is heitivu, behetivu as a menorah. What he's doing is he's preparing it to achieve its purpose. Tov means capable of achieving purpose. or actively now achieving purpose. The purpose of the menorah is only for one thing, to be lit, to produce that light. Not to set it up. Setting it up is just a preparation for it to achieve its purpose. And so too, when God created the light and saw that it was tov, it's not that it was a good light. That's a good light, God, like we said, brush that off your shoulder here. No, that is a light. That's not the light of the sun. The sun wasn't created until day 4 in those epochs there. It is a light that is meant to achieve its purpose. This is a light that God saw eventually will achieve its purpose. And our sages say it's a very deep thing that light was hidden away, the Or Haganuz. It was hidden away for the righteous, for the tzaddikim, for the end of days. It was hidden away inside of the Torah. It was hidden away in moments of spirituality when you want to say something really, really bad about somebody and you hold back. You get, your soul fills up with this light that's intended for one day to reveal its purpose. But that's the whole idea. That's what it means that light was good, and not just the regular meaning that we would have thought good. So therefore it comes out, and this is very, very important. It comes out that in the Torah, when it says the word tov and it says the word ra, it's not making a judgment. When we see the words good and evil, wicked, right, and righteous, we think to ourselves, Torah's judging. There it is, judging again. Oh, Orthodox Jews, being all judgy again. I'm being judged. Maybe I'll never live up to these standards. Oh no, this is pointless, or this is so negative, or whatever the case is, that our minds constantly goes to the negative. But we see here that Tov and Ra are not judgment statements. They're statements that describe a reality. Tov means accomplishing purpose. Ra means broken, not able to accomplish purpose. It's just a description of reality. If I told you, Riley, your phone's broken, which it happens to be nowadays, right? You're not offended. You go, why are you talking about my phone, bro? Why are you talking about my phone? I paid a lot of money for that phone. Don't tell me the phone's broken. It's like, but dude, it's broken. It's like, you shouldn't get offended. It's true. The phone is broken. Sorry. Hashem should bless you with a new one soon, But the point is that we have to realize that from the moment that God created Adam and Eve in the garden, and they chose incorrectly, because they were given free will, they broke the world, right? You ever heard that? Like, you just broke the internet, right? I hope this class breaks the internet, right? But they broke the world, right? And what happens is that we're all in the process of fixing the world. Tikkun olam. That's the true tikkun olam. We're fixing the world. We're fixing ourselves because everything is broken. Everything is to some extent ra. Everything to some extent is broken. When the Torah says that a murderer is ra, it's not that he's evil. Maybe he's evil. I don't know, but I'm not judging. If we were created to bring life into this world, and you go ahead and you take someone out of this world when they weren't meant to leave this world, that is a brokenness. You're manifesting your brokenness. That's not your purpose. If you get angry at someone when God gave you the mental capacity to chill out, to be calm and collected, and to leave the situation and come back later when you're more relaxed, and you choose to just blow up and just, right? You're manifesting your brokenness. It's not evil. You might also be evil, but I'm not judging, right? When you steal from someone else something that they need, and you were created to actually give to others when they need of yours, then you are manifesting your brokenness by stealing from someone else. You're a broken person at that moment. When you judge negatively other people, you're expressing your brokenness. The Torah says, right, judge everyone favorably, and so on and so forth, right? Everything in the Torah could be seen as, do this, it's tov. It's not just good. Forget good and bad. No one's judging. Only God could judge you, and you. We'll get to that in a second if we have time, but this is the purpose for which you were created. That's all it's saying. It's not a judgment. You do that, you're in line with your purpose, that's called tov. If you, unfortunately, don't do what you were created to do, you're not evil. Doesn't necessarily mean you're evil. I'm not judging you. Only God could judge you. And you know for yourself. But it's an objective statement. You're not accomplishing your purpose. That's what the Torah means by ra, a failure to accomplish purpose. And so what we get out of this class is, and for me, it was a big healing that happened at that moment, because I realized Torah is not judgmental. No one's judging me. Only God and myself. I'm meant to judge myself. I am meant to judge myself. In fact, the Torah says when human beings judge themselves, then God doesn't judge them. What does that mean? It means that if people would actually take honest assessments of where they're at, then they would be flying high and God wouldn't need to judge them. They'd be just fine. That's the whole idea. And in Judaism, it's built into the system. Before I go to sleep every night, I'm supposed to assess my day. Today, did I live up to the purpose for which I was created? Am I one step closer to achieve my purpose? If the answer is yes, then that's tov. If it's no good, right? It's not evil. I was not evil today, but it was ra. I manifested my brokenness. I'm a broken person. I'll try again tomorrow to fix myself. Every week before Shabbat comes, look back at the week. What's going on? Tov or no? Every year before Rosh Hashanah, tov or no? And so on and so forth, right? So we have a system for that. So what I want to leave you with is the following. The only way you can really be a good person and not just be saying things, meaningless words, a good person, I'm a good person, she's a good person, right? That's a judgment. Forget judgments. We're talking about objective reality. What does it mean to be good? It means figure out what your purpose is in this world and try to accomplish that purpose for which you were created. As much as you're doing that, you're tov. If not, unfortunately, you're broken. But don't worry, the whole world's broken. We're trying to fix ourselves together. Okay, now it's a big question. What's my purpose for creation? For that, I introduce you to Rabbi Dov Cohen, who's been talking about the purpose of life and spiritual journeys, and all my colleagues at Aish, aish.com/live, Aish Live. Thank you so much for joining us for this part 4 of this 4-part series. I know there's a lot to think about right now. I'm going to continue personally with my students right now, but we've reached our time limit for Aish Live. So I want to thank you again. Join me next time from Jerusalem. Stay safe, stay well. All the best. Much love.